I received notice of this from the township on Saturday. That's 4 days ago. And I don't understand the procedure. Procedure is important. Fairness is important. It seems to me that you're talking about a final decision on June 20th. Am I correct in that?
June 15th.
Pardon?
June 15th.
June, I understood two things. I understood that you had to appear before the court on June 15th, that there'd be another hearing here on June 20th to pass the ordinance. Am I correct, or have I misunderstood?
Misunderstood.
Well, what is it? I'd like to know how
That's what they said.
directly affected property owners can change or influence this ordinance. Is it
be the purpose of today's...
Now, you've given me, and I think most of the people who live in Liberty Greens, 4 days or maybe a little more notice, but not much more. I've been a lawyer for 45 years. When a complaint is filed, people have 30 days to answer it. They have an as-of-right extension for another 30 days, as you well know, and often extensions are granted. Now, as I read this ordinance, this is going to directly impact my real estate values in a major way. You're telling me right now that without being able to have my association, Liberty Greens Association, hire a lawyer, tonight's hearing will decide the wording of this ordinance. Is that correct? Is that what I understand?
Yes.
That's unfair.
And that's why.
And I'll remember that when we vote.
Good.
Now, I'd like to directly address Section 95-20.2. And I understand that our questions are going to be answered en masse at the end, and I've been watching, and it doesn't appear that anyone's taking notes.
Not watching me. Not watching
Who's
Mr.
taking
Phillips.
notes?
Mr. Phillips.
No, no, I'm not. I apologize. Please take good notes of what I'm about to say, because this is apparently the only chance I get to influence the place I've been living in for 35 years and whatever it may or may not be worth. It seems to me that there's a perception that townhouse residents are somewhat lower-class citizens who don't make the income or have the job to live in single-family homes. That is not true. There are many of us who choose to live that way because we're single, we're a retired couple, we're a young couple just starting out. And Liberty Greens has always been a relatively high-end development with nice people in it. You're going to change that on 4 days' notice. Now, as to Section 95-20.2, you apparently consider it one affordable housing zone of two kinds: market rate townhouses and what are called multiple family affordable rental units. But you don't divide the zone in any way, and Don Felker, I believe, alluded to that. I see no reason at all why 27.5 acres need to be one lot for one zone. Liberty Greens, as I said, is a fairly high-end development. It always has been. The far end of the Block 8801, the northeast corner of it, abuts a college power plant, a college library, and a college parking lot. Now, why can't the affordable housing units be put down there, and why can't that be in the ordinance? Why does it have to be 50 feet from my back fence? Can you rewrite this ordinance before June 15th to satisfy that?
No, anything is possible.
Not will you, can you?
Just answer.
Mr. Mayor, will you, and can, I'm sure you can, will you? Or is this it? Is this, I mean, I might as well sit down if there's no chance to influence this.
And you can-
We'd like to answer that now, we're waiting until you do your summary.
Whatever's your pleasure.
Answer it now.
So, let's, so
Please, please, we're doing it.
So it's an inclusionary housing zone, which is typically on a single lot. And a developer basically has to provide for both the market rate units and the affordable.
You're not answering my question.
Yes,
That's
I-
gobbledygook. The question is, can you change this ordinance tonight before June 15th?
I would
I'm not gonna-
appreciate, Peter, if you
not gonna
didn't slam on your
give you
comment
every
there.
courtesy.
Please,
You need to
listen
give
and
me
have
every
some
courtesy.
respect for him like we do for you, sir. All
I
right,
apologize.
thank you.
We only just
4
got the
days is what kind of
notice.
respect?
Good. Go ahead.
So I'm trying to answer all the questions that you.
There's only one question.
Well,
Can
but-
you change the ordinance?
We
or
can do
we-
anything that this governing body directs me to do, but I'm trying to answer your question, and I'm trying to give both the public and the governing body information about what went into the zone and the difference between zoning issues and site plan issues. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to basically educate the public as best that I can, and you can believe me or not believe me, and put the governing body in the best position to move forward. So please just let me answer it. You may not like the answer, but let me answer the question as best I can.
Please.
I believe that from a zoning perspective, as an inclusionary development, and not having detailed information about the site's physical conditions, and we know that the site has some wetlands and we know it has some slopes, but there hasn't been extensive analysis on the site. Having said that all the issues that were raised by you and one of the gentlemen before you about where things should go, we can't micromanage that when we don't have information, full information about the site or the development proposal at this point. I understand your concern about the location of the affordable units. And all I can tell you is that before an initial plan that was done by the property owner, by the way, we were approached by the property owner, the Sisters of Charity, saying this is available surplus land that we can help you build and meet your affordable housing obligation. And by the way, they did the same thing in Florham Park. And by the way, in Florham Park, they got a higher density on their excess lands in Florham Park than we fought for here. And by the way, they came in with a higher density here, that we fought them back down to give them nothing greater than the density and the standards that are on the zone in which your property is located. We were looking out for the public interest when we basically negotiated this zoning. And I know that's not going to make you happy, but I will say that in a preliminary concept that they had, which included multifamily apartments that were not affordable, they didn't have all market rate townhouses in their initial plan, and we rejected it. We said density is the density on your project at Liberty Greens, no more than that. And ultimately, the affordable units in the initial concept were at the far end of the site, away from Liberty Green. But I would be reluctant to mandate those specifics in a zoning ordinance. To me, they're site plan issues, and I think the planning board has the right, when a developer comes in with the plan, to basically say, we'd like to see those units there for XYZ reasons. But at the zoning stage, without all the information needed, I would be reluctant, and I would advise my client against putting that in the zoning ordinance without full information. And I hope I answered your question. It may not make you happy, but that's kind of where we came at this from.
My question is simply, can you change this ordinance, or are you going to enact it as it's written now, no matter what we say?
That's up to what the governing body decides to
That's all
see.
you had to answer. So I'll make some comments. I think that
Peter, you got one more minute.
that's not fair, Peter.
We got 4 days.
There's a lot of people who want to speak. We said 5 minutes.
How many?
Here for 10.
We got time.
We have time.
We got time.
We've waited long enough.
Does anyone object to me going?
No. No.
Peter.
When they get elected.
We've been sitting here.
Please, why don't you all listen and stop being emotional about it?
Let him speak.
Yeah, right. Where do you live? Yeah, where do you live? Where do you live?
Come on. Wow.
Speak, please. Speak.
I'd like to speak, but you're not letting me.
I said,
Give me 1 minute.
don't be emotional.
I am emotional because my property values
Just let
are
him
threatened
speak.
by this. Again, I've been a lawyer for a long time. There's a lot of vagueness in this ordinance. And none of the affordable rental units, that's section D4, D parentheses 4, shall exceed 3 stories and 45 feet in height. None of them shall be located less than 75 feet from any tract boundary line. That's my property. But it also says that there shall be formal recreation facilities. Are formal recreation facilities allowed within 75 feet of the property line? That's a question. I think it should be addressed. It's somewhat vague. It talks about,
They're not restricted from being that distance.
yeah, so they can be right at the property line. We can have a basketball court for a lot of low-income people
with all due
to
respect,
get into the
site
NDA. But we have certain regulations for peace and quiet. Refuge areas shall be designated so as to minimize any detrimental effect on character of the development of adjacent properties. That's the vaguest thing I've ever seen. Refuge areas, which I presume to be dumpsters, should be located at least 75 feet from our property line. The major issue is the one I talked about first. There is absolutely no reason. I'm sorry I forgot your name, the fellow who's answering, Mr. on the end there.
Phillips.
Mr. Phillips. Mr. Phillips simply says he wouldn't recommend that you divide this ordinance into 2 sections. He wouldn't recommend that you specify it any further. Well, I think that's totally unfair. There's no reason now, as I see it, and I'm not a zoning lawyer, but common sense tells me, there's no reason now why you can't change this to put the affordable housing units as far away from Liberty Greens as possible. And as I said, there's a college library, a college power plant, and a big parking lot. And it's not going to bother them, but it's going to bother us. And you better specify, is a deck or a terrace part of a building? It's not clear in this. Is a refuse area like a dumpster allowed to be on the property line, or does it have to be 75 feet away? It's not clear in this, and there are a lot of things that aren't clear. And I know I've exceeded my minutes, so I'm going to stop. But I think it's unfair, and I think all of us should have the right to address this as much as we need. Our association needs to get a good zoning lawyer to advise us. I can't advise on this. I'm not that kind of lawyer. You haven't given us the time. You're ramming this through, and I am going to remember it. And I voted for most of you, if not all of you. But I won't again if this goes through.